Hi, welcome back to another episode of SEO On-Air. I'm your host, Aaron, and today we have Michael Venidis, Chief Experience Officer at Rhino Strategic Solutions. We talk about how to use PPC effectively, fine-tuning your social media campaigns, and how AI can enhance your marketing efforts. I hope you enjoy this episode. I think when you did start off first at Rhino, you were a call listening agent, and now
Yeah.
I'm not too sure how many years have gone by, but you are now the Chief Experience Officer. So could you
Yes,
maybe
sir.
give me what
CXO.
happened before that and how you kind of got into Rhino?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a story I get asked about a lot. I was an aspiring musician. It was funny. I grew up listening to rock and roll music, and a lot of that started with the beginning, like the need to feel accepted and to feel cool. I was born hearing impaired slightly, not completely deaf, obviously, and I basically just wanted to fit in. I got picked on a lot, so I think, when you see these rock stars and MTV and those things, in the 90s, it was like, man, these guys are cool and everybody loves them. So that's kind of what my dream was, to be on a stage, to sing but the reality of what I wanted was to be a part of something, right? I just wanted to fit in and be a part of something with friends and feel appreciated and cool, right? So long story short, that was my dream. I was an aspiring touring musician. We did that for about 10 years. We took a good swing at it, did some big tours around the country. Warped Tour is a very popular one for the younger demographic, may not be as familiar. But one day I just got shot. I was 25 years old. I got shot 2 times when I was just walking around downtown enjoying an art walk. And that shooting changed the entire trajectory of my life. I ended up, in a situation where I'd taken 2 bullets, so I was immobile for a little while, holed up in a hospital bed, and when you're an aspiring musician, you barely make ends meet. You're jumping from gig to
Right.
gig when you're not touring versus when you are on the road. You got to pay for that, right? So all this to say, me being stuck and holed up in that bed caused me to really lash out and look for work. I had just reached out on Facebook and took a shot in the dark and asked if somebody was happening to have like a job. This would have been 2012, right? Like remote isn't as common then, but I got lucky. I had a friend of a friend who reached out and said, I've got this job where all you got to do is listen to these phone calls, and you just got to classify the calls and transcribe them. And that's where it all began. I mean, I didn't even know what SEO was, or that you could manipulate Google or do any of this type of digital marketing stuff when I started here 11 years ago at Rhino Strategic Solutions.
Let's say digital marketing. Do you mind giving a shout out to your SoundCloud, or do you want to keep that maybe hidden for now?
I mean, gosh, if I'm giving some plugs, we'll go behind the scenes. Zach Yoshioka, amazing, incredible individual, human being. Did a lot of band management and things like that back in my day. He now represents some pretty popular rock bands. Flyleaf is a very common one I know he's been working with. And he was our band manager for a long time. Great guy, business minded guy. Connected we with many, well respected musicians. Asking Alexandria from First to Last, Skrillex. All of these people were involved either directly or indirectly with our little inner circle. So I've been very fortunate to rub elbows with some of them, and I'll even give extra love to Matt Good from First to Last. He's now producing, and he was a great resource for me to be able to write a song about how I was feeling after I got shot and kind of close that chapter. It was important to me that I put out one more track and just kind of write a message to the individual that put me in the spot that I was in. And, the song was all about forgiveness and stuff like that. So that was like a really cool way to just kind of close that door and really move into the next chapter of my life, which is what we're here to talk about, right? Digital marketing, right? How can we help grow businesses and see business owners win? Because that's super fun stuff. It's rewarding to like have that impact, on people that put everything on the line to grow a business, employ bodies, and then bring in, new leads and solve problems for your everyday consumer.
One thing we can probably get into is, first of all, Rhino itself. What exactly do they do, and what would you say are their top services?
So Rhino Strategic Solutions is a digital marketing agency that exists solely for the home services industry. It started about 2008. We were originally called Brickyard Marketing, but we went through a rebrand about 5, 6 years in. And where we really differentiate ourselves isn't just like specializing in home services and actually understanding these businesses that we represent. It's getting very tactical and strategic, right? Hence our name. Like all of our strategies are designed to really specialize in home services. That way we can outperform a traditional marketing agency that might be tapping into, many different verticals. But I would say that our bread and butter is SEO and PPC. And we really kind of differentiate ourselves by focusing on new leads rather than just revenue. So examples of that, right? Like in the PPC world, retargeting versus a general search ad might be a different kind of approach depending on what we're targeting. But it's an example of, hey, let's be intentional strategically on generating new customers that have never ever heard about your business, never seen a billboard, never heard a radio advertisement, no supplemental further along in the funnel type lead here. Like we want to get people that literally go to Google, do not know the business they're looking for, typing in a term like AC repair, and focus on really separating those types of leads from, say, somebody who's been retargeted or is a repeat customer, that we're trying to bring back, second transaction or, two or three steps into a supplemental sales process.
Right. And I don't know if you can really answer this question with full, let's say, honesty and transparency, but is there any secret sauce that Rhino does that other digital marketing agencies don't do?
I mean, it's funny. Like I'll call it a secret sauce, but when I say it to you, you're like, that's not really a secret. It's
Okay.
it's really simple. Genuinely caring.
Right.
A lot of people would call that, it's not so much a secret, but you'd be surprised how many businesses lack that, right? We say it, but
Yeah.
do we? Um, a lot of how we built this organization, we were very focused on, what Simon Sinek refers to as the golden circle. You start with your why, and then we work out into our how and our what. And as I was fortunate enough to work alongside my mentors, the co-founders of Rhino Strategic Solutions, this is Chris and Anna Yano, we were very intentional about, building our mission statement, our vision, our core values with two pieces in mind, not just to be, the most reputable digital marketing agency in home services, but to also really focus on people. And I give you an example of that, Aaron. Like every company has core values, right? As they should. I believe it's one of the four major quadrants, like to a successful business. In addition to a vision and a mission statement and a unique differentiator is how I teach this. But core values, it's important that we're picking something that these employees can walk out the door with and literally be proud of that when you go home, right? As a
Right.
father, a mother, a sister, a brother, a son, a daughter. Like I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do you build a culture or a business that allows your employees to correlate what they're truly passionate about personally and what they take pride in being as people, and then cause that to come out and be a true reflection of what you're doing as an organization? And if you can be intentional when you pick that vision, that mission statement, those core values, with all of that in mind, and you focus on the why of that golden circle, I believe that your ability to genuinely care in everything that you do, not just work quality internally, but to actually stand out. I think what you'll tend to find is that improved results and better outcomes will happen organically because of the core and the foundation that you've built.
You mentioned that you kind of teach at Rhino. So, what exactly would your roles and responsibilities be as the Chief Experience Officer?
Well, the two main components, and how I would say it very vaguely, is I'm heavily involved in both our strategic decisions on how we're actually growing these businesses as an organization, but the overall experience of our clientele, right? So I want them to have a world class experience. I want them to feel like we're not only accomplishing the goal and helping them grow their business, but we bring value by educating, consulting, and teaching the client. I teach this to my account managers as being above peer. Above peer
Right.
is, do I have clients look up to me when I'm on these calls because I bring them value and I've earned their trust and their respect, and I've shown them, that these routine performance meetings actually bring value to their organization. So the client experience is one tremendous thing that I'm responsible for, but I also
Right.
focus on internal employee operations. So while I've got a team of rock stars that really are the heartbeat of this, really what I'm concerned about is what is the internal employee experience like. So I'll have a lot of different interactions, from different types of reviews to check-ins to really just trying to tap into different team members and understand like what are your personal goals and help them see like how does this business help you obtain those personal goals. Because if
Right.
you could see that correlation, right, that's what sparks passion, fire, drive, motivation. This is how you unlock the full potential of your employees rather than just going in, you know, I'm going to do just the task, to your point. Just tell me what to do and
Right.
I'll do it. Create the
Yeah, and
passion
then
and they'll
go back
find
home
ways to
and
do it even better than you're asking.
I'm just an SEO analyst, let's say.
Yeah.
I'm doing my tasks that you've assigned to me on a daily basis, and I'm kind of getting stuck in a routine where I don't think I'm doing anything more. Is this an opportunity for you to come in and say, hey, this is what I can help you out with?
Absolutely. I mean, if I've got, and let me make sure I repeat this so I'm understanding the question. What I'm hearing is like, hey, if I'm an SEO analyst that works for Rhino and I'm losing that motivation and I'm going through repetitions and routines, is this something,
Yes.
that I can assist with?
Yep. That is the question, framed in a much better
Yeah.
way.
I mean, and the answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes. I mean, this is how I can handle things, Aaron, is I make it clear for every employee that comes in here that as a leader, I believe in a servant mentality. And what I mean by that is these guys don't work for me, I work for them. And my responsibility, because I'm not the expert, right? I have a SEO leader that is the expert. I might have experience, but they are in that chair because they're better than me. That's my job. Put the best people in the right seats. But where I come in is how can I spark that motivation? How can I challenge you? How can I help you get to where you want to go? So a lot of my conversations with an individual that we'll call it has lost the way will sound very much like, hey, what makes you tick? What do you want out of your life? Because not everybody
Right.
wants to be promoted or go into leadership. Some people do just want to be what someone might refer to as a worker bee and do a 9 to 5, and that's completely okay. Like if you're content with that, but in ways
Yeah.
I need to find how to tap into what it is that makes you passionate. Ask the questions. The questions are the key. So many of us talk like I'm doing right now, and we don't ask enough questions to really get to the core of why they might feel that way. And to me, that sounds simple. An SEO analyst that's feeling the way that you described just needs to be challenged with a new problem, something different than they've been tasked with routinely, and give them a chance to feel like they're making a difference.
And does learning, let's say, take a role in this as well? Because let's say I'm doing an SEO analyst job, but I also have some kind of inclination towards social media. Do you come in and be like, hey, we can help you out with that by providing you some materials or a course online?
Absolutely. So what we did is we tried to build a culture that naturally solves that, right? So like one, transparency is a core value here. We've built a system that really creates an environment in which that individual would feel completely comfortable to come in and say, Mike, I'm just not really passionate about SEO anymore, and I've been really enjoying TikTok and social media reels. I'd love to make a transition. How do you feel about that? Well, in
Right.
addition, we've got education as another core value, and Rhinos here required. It's not optional. Once a month, they have to spend an X amount of time or read a number of pages or watch a video X number of minutes that correlates to an educational topic that results in some form of growth for the role. If someone's passionate about social media, Aaron, I'm gonna say, hey, well, why don't you start using your education budget to start learning the things you need to know, and then anytime we have a position open up or we have a need in a particular department, it's all public knowledge. So we allow existing
Right.
employees the chance to interview for the role just as if you didn't work for the company. And in many ways, we interview them first out of respect.
Where I'll come to you as a client and you can let me know some questions back as an agency. One
Sure.
of them being, as an agency point of view, how do you know which client is going to be worth your time?
Well, that's a pretty loaded question. I mean, there are some things that I do and don't prefer, right? Like, um, it's never fun being the first digital marketing agency. I can start by telling you that. Like, we take businesses of all size. and all levels of experience. So for our listeners, I don't want them to confuse what I'm about to say with, I'm not an option. I mean, Rhino, we've been very intentional on how we price things. Actually, our brand equity and our reputation in the home services, I think we've thrived that if I had a complaint, people naturally assume that we're not affordable, which is extremely wrong. I mean, we
Right.
have different options for all layers and levels of business sizes, you know. But it is difficult to be the first marketing company because I think that my biggest gripe with digital marketing is it's very subjective in some ways, or what someone might argue, they call it smoke and mirrors because it's not entirely clear, especially when we talk about SEO, right? Like Google's not going to share the secrets of the algorithm, or else
Right.
people wouldn't say Google it. Like they've won the consumer trust, and the drive to use its tool because they protect it from guys like you and me.
Right.
But it's tough when you get on reporting calls and you start talking about impression share, conversions, click through rates, all of these metrics, right? Like it's no different than when you're a consumer going through a business transaction. It's like, I just want you to make this easy, right? Like what I'm paying for is experience, trust, comfort is really what it is in home services, right? So really what I need here is like simplicity. In digital marketing, the challenge is it's complex. So how do you take something so complex and make it simple so that business owners can comprehend whether it's performing or not? Other
Right.
things that I usually try to look at, that I sometimes try to be mindful of, is what is the operations like? Like another challenge we deal with is like we might be bringing all of these leads and we have this amazing transparency reporting called Rhino tracks. And this is the reporting that allowed us to be so different and really separate what is truly a new customer versus any type of repeat revenue based lead. Um, and we tried to make it simple to kind of deliver that information, right? Like, so it's been like very valuable in that sense and easy. But what it also shows is when that lead comes through, how commonly these businesses don't book the lead upon first inbound call. Now, Aaron, remember, like, this is home services and we're like predominantly 80% roughly like HVAC. And I think that your seasonality component and your discomfort of homeowners, like they expect you to be there today, now. So if you don't get
Yeah.
that lead, you lose it. So these are things that I just describe as like unfortunacies. They're not necessarily things that would cause me to not work with a client, but they are like the challenges that we deal with as an organization. I might give you this report that says you got these leads, you got them for, $80 new customer, which is great. Your average ticket's 5K for a new AC system, right? Like, but the challenge is that there's still a booking and a sales process that has to happen after marketing has done its part.
Right.
And that's where we get beat up. Is it's like shoulder seasons and people say, I'm not busy, what's your problem? I'm like, well, our system's running, is the weather great, are the windows open, like demand isn't there, what can you do? Or they
Right.
like to point the finger and pick on us and beat us up, and I'm like, your CSRs, your customer service reps aren't even booking the lead when we bring them to you. Like, focus on fixing your operational problems, because that's really what you need to do here. The easy thing to do is just put pressure on us and yell at us, but the right
Right.
thing
Just
to do
shift the
for the
blame.
actual success of the business is to fix the bottleneck that you've got to actually do something with the investment you spend on us to make it happen. Does that kind of answer your
So
question?
it does, but I'll ask a follow up to that to maybe get more details into it. So if me as a HVAC agency, I mean company, and I come to you saying that, hey, listen, I want to take care of some, let's say SEO, and I want to kind of build a brand at least for my website.
Yeah.
How do I put this? What can you give me as tips and tricks for a starter? And then we'll probably get the more detailed part of it, let's say later.
Yeah. So I get this question quite often at some of the speaking engagements that I've been blessed to have a stage and do. Um, and my first answer for anyone that's a startup that doesn't have like marketing dollars to spend on an agency is Google My Business. Google Business Profiles, right, is what we call it today, but Maps, right? That's like, it's a completely free SEO based tool that I do think is user friendly, and I think that the process is pretty easy if you just try to go get your business set up. And we're talking local businesses, right? Like when you're
Right.
dealing with local SEO, I'm going to speak to the home services. I've been born and bred 11 years in the home services. So a lot of my digital marketing tactics and conversations are based about local,
Right.
parameters, and we're dealing with business. So I would say Maps is a game changer. I would start there because it's 100% free, easy to use, and there's some pretty solid data points in there that just help you start to look at things like what are people searching, how often are they searching for it. And it's cool because you get something tangible. You have a report that literally tells you how many calls, came through that Maps listing when someone does like a click to call on your cell phone or something of that nature. So I would always start there for anyone that's literally like starting straight up from the ground, one man roofing company, just trying to, get a footprint on the map. But other than that, I would tell you your brand. Your brand is extremely huge. Like, take the time. I mean, I'm a huge fan of progress over perfection. I think that we get better faster when we take that mentality. But I
Right.
do believe that it is important that you're very thoughtful when you start, right? Like I hear this from Ken Goodrich, very reputable businessman in this industry, right? He's the owner of Gettle, massive organization for HVAC. I hear him on many podcasts, and I hear him talk about this a lot. He says if he could go back, he wishes he would have been more intentional about some of the foundations, right? Like that vision, the mission,
Right.
all of those things, your why, right up front. And he had wished he had created the systems and the processes and a little bit more foundation in the beginning, because it's harder to do once you've got all the wheels in motion, because you've got
Right.
all these distractions and all these things flying around. And it would be a lot easier to have an organized strategy and approach if you just lay that out in the beginning and have your vision be clear and sound before you dive in. So I would, all that to say, Maps is a game changer. Just being very intentional about what your why is, putting thought into your brand and the vision and how you would like things to operate will have you kind of a step ahead, I think, as you continue to build it out. But obviously, like when it comes to the website world, I would say specifically just be mindful of your above the fold tactics, right? Like if you're going to start off with a Wix site or a very entry level build it yourself site, make sure that upon entry within 3 seconds, that certain information is extremely clear. It needs to be obvious where you service, where you're located. It needs to be obvious what you do. It needs to be obvious you have to have a call to action or a value proposition. All of these things matter. It's like if I enter the website and you're an air conditioning company, but I see, this image of this comfortable puppy, sitting on the couch. Comfort is what you're pitching.
Right.
But upon first glance, I might think you're like some kind of
Pet
dog
store.
related grooming business. You know,
Right.
I want to see trucks. I want to see servicemen, technicians, HVAC systems. Like, just be intentional about trying to really make it clear who you are and what you do within the first 3 seconds upon entry. No scrolling, no clicking. That would be a great start for a one-stop landing page, just as you start to get yourself online and leverage some digital presence.
Let's say I don't have the budget for marketing, so I try to go into local SEO. I do what you said, Google My Business, and I try to update that as often as I can. I'm trying to summarize it. I think that's pretty much about it, right? I guess at least the surface level side of it. If I'm just starting off, so what would be the second level then? If I have now, like, let's say a little bit of a budget, a couple of months have gone by, I've put in some effort into my SEO as well, so some things are running. What would be, let's say, level two to this now? What do I have to do now to continue this growth?
So I think that depends on a couple of different factors, right? It depends if you're going to start actually having a marketing budget and pouring in like deep, like tactical, right? Advertising, or if you actually want to start to apply that budget into some deeper level organic tactics like through SEO. Examples
Can I
might
do
be,
50-50?
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if I was going to answer that, I would say a couple things. I would start looking at other local directories, meaning more than just Google Maps, like any type of directory. That could be Yelp, that could be even Facebook is a directory. Any type of name, address, phone number, location, parameter based type directory on the internet. Angie's List, like I would just make sure that my name, address, and phone number are set up on every one of them. Those profiles are claimed, and I would be trying to build reputation on all of them, right? So generate reviews to all of them, not just one. Here's the thing that people don't realize is these devices are set up with arrangements for default, right? Like Google Maps has a review platform. Apple Maps does not. It actually feeds into, I believe it's Yelp, that handles
Right.
their review algorithm rankings, right? And then you've got Bing that will feed in off the Facebook reviews. And that's the thing is like in location based environments, there's three main factors you care about, right? There's your proximity. So your location is key. Have a location that is in a good, solid area where you want to do business nearby. The closer you are to your consumer, Google gives you leverage for sure in location-based businesses, but also
Okay.
your relevance and your prevalence. It needs to be clear what you do. We just talked about that, but it also needs to be your reputation. Are you actually pouring effort into driving your reviews and generating responses from maybe the word of mouth referrals that you had in phase one? That would be huge. So I'd be focusing on those things off the website. On the website, I would start with content. So if you can write it yourself, do it. But I would advise anyone can Google this. It's called SEO siloing. It's a tactic that was taught by a gentleman named Bruce Clay, who coins himself as the godfather of SEO, wise
Right.
man. But he had this very strong opinion that how you organize the hierarchy and the structure and the layout of your website carried weight. It needed to be very clear and easy to navigate, but coding read left to right, top to bottom, right? So your most
Right.
important page that you think is going to drive leads should essentially be, the most left button on the navigation bar because human mind reads left to right, top to bottom. So
Right.
you want to give it the weight and the importance of like, hey, this page is the one that I want people to see the most outside of your homepage. So write content, be organized about it. An example might be like if you want to service Phoenix, Arizona, and you do all these different services, have a city page that talks about all of the services, but then write individual pages about every single service you offer, right? Because Google wants to show
Okay.
pages that are exactly what you want, not more, not less. That's how it keeps the trust of the consumer. So these are the SEO things on that 50% of what I think you could do yourself if you really have the
Right.
time or the bandwidth in the beginning. The other 50, if you're going to invest it in, I would say do some paid advertising. And I would start with Google intentionally just because most consumers are going to go there when they're looking for a business. And the challenge is that in situations where you don't have that location, that proximity leverage that I just talked about, that's the power of pay-per-click advertising is it's like cutting the line to get into the club, right? You pay the
Right.
bouncer $20 to get in, like then you cut the line and you're seen and you're part of the experience. And that's the concept of it if I was trying to be very simple. But
Right.
if you don't have a good value proposition or a great savings, coupon, same day service, some kind of call to action that really separates yourself, that's where you lose. People just pour money into pay per click, but if you don't really have anything that makes you special, people get pissed because you get great click through rates, but you get low conversion rates. You have to understand the
Right.
consumer, right, Aaron? Like they're going scrolling past the ads because they want trust. That's what they came to Google to get is a trustworthy experience. And everyone says these ads they're targeting me, they're manipulating me. But what happens is as I scroll down to look for that trust, I see this ad and go, that seems almost too good to be true. Can't hurt to just click on this and see if it's real. And in the
Right.
instances where we actually find what we're looking for in the ad that caught us, this is where PPC thrives, and you're able to generate new leads. Plus, you get to be very tactical with PPC. You can be very specific and have all these unique targeting settings like location, keyword. Whereas SEO is more subjective. You kind of have to convince it over time, and there's no real guarantee on when that's going to work. There's so many factors to take into consideration. How much competition, is in that area, how much of them are doing
Right.
digital, how much brand equity is in the picture, yada, yada, yada. So it's a bit of a long winded answer, but I hope that I was able to contribute a lot of value because I felt like that was a great question.
Where in this entire conversation that we've had does AI play a role?
AI, yeah. I mean, here's my take on
It might
AI.
be an entire new podcast on its own.
Yeah, but I'll give it to you very simple. Like, I use AI in low risk environments. So, I'll give you an example. Um, I represent the businesses of people that took risk and pour their lives into their organization. And AI is a game changer. It's what I believe is the beginning of a major shift that we're going to see in this industry. No, I don't think SEO is dead. No, I don't think digital marketers should be concerned. I think that this is a very powerful tool that has been invented that should be added to the tool belt and utilized in the right scenarios. It shouldn't be
Okay.
abused. And an example, just because it's a common topic, is hey, do you use Chat GPT to write your SEO content? Some people are
Right.
doing that. I believe that's a pretty risky thing to do when people are trusting you with their businesses and you don't know yet how Google feels about this, right? Like, I think that it would be a little premature to start writing all of your content, just to cut time and cost on content writers to spit out something and slap it on a page. For all we
Right.
know, Google rolls out a penalty, right? A penalty, I use air quotes, that would basically say, hey, any type of AI generated content no longer carries weight and will not be indexed. I mean, that's a
Massive.
lot of time and money that would randomly go to waste. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is I think that AI is powerful, like examples and how I use it. I use it where it makes sense. Like I use it to write a job listing and then I might edit it and tweak it. I use
Okay.
it, when I'm having writer's block and I might need to write a difficult email. And then it just kind of gets my creativity going. Like I'm constantly thinking, how do I cut corners? Another great example, right? Like, hey, you're going to take the family to Disneyland? Like have it write a 3-day itinerary. Like there's a
Right.
lot of ways that I think it could be leveraged to cut corners and save time. And we're not even talking about the plugins, right? Like developers are even 100 times more dangerous with being able to use this tool, for regenerated types of like code and things like that could be extremely impactful. So it's a bit of a loaded question to your point. Definitely a whole nother episode we can talk about. But I think what I'm really trying to say is I love it. It's amazing, but be smart with it and use it thoughtfully and cautiously because it's still a bit early and we really have to weigh out the risk associated, and who that impacts when we make decisions on how much we want to trust it and lean on it.
Do you have, let's say, any podcasts or books that you would want to recommend?
Oof, yes. I mean, I can give you a whole episode on this. I mean, the podcast, I'm going to go with the obvious, To the Point Home Services. It's our own. We were partners with Gary Vaynerchuk. I think it's 2018, 2019. The years blend together. It's been so long.
Right.
And our CEO founder, Cristiano, had worked with Gary and they built this amazing podcast. I think we're like maybe number 17 or 18. And I don't know if it's the country or the world, but this is in the marketing category. It's not just
Right.
digital. So it's great. He's had some really, reputable names like Mike Tyson's been on there. He's had all of these great business owners too. And it's all about the home services and the core is just to give back, right? It's like you can't
Right.
represent every single every single home service company in the same area. So how do you help the guys that, in a saturated market? Well, we're just empowering them with free wisdom and trying to create a platform in which businesses of all sizes can go in and learn from one another. So that would be the podcast for sure that I'm going to refer. It's my own shameless plug. Um,
Nice.
Books, I've had a goal this year. I've had a goal to read a book a month, and I'm falling a little short. I'm a busy man,
Okay.
but I'll give you four. I started off when I attended an event in RoofCon at the end of last year. I had the privilege of chatting with John Maxwell, who I believe is such an incredible leader. That's where my passion is. I do believe that to be the greatest leader, you have to always be learning and you have to pour into yourself to be able to pour into others. So I'm constantly
Right.
trying to learn and soak things up to give that back to my leadership team. And he, when I asked him of all his books, what was the one, Change Your World was the one that he threw out. But he was also big on the 21 Laws of Leadership, both two amazing Maxwell books. I was over Maxwell, so then I shifted to a different author. I just read Bent by James Walker, former HVAC business owner, and he talks a lot about a people first culture over a numbers driven business, and that's huge. And now I'm currently reading Simon Sinek's Start with Why, which is why you hear me talking about the golden circle.
This is pretty much like a little trailer for that book itself because we've been talking about how you should actually go and find out the why. But yeah, a little bit more about the book if you don't mind.
Start with Why by Simon Sinek. I'm only about 40 pages in, and I'm literally just reading about the golden circle. So, as much as I'd love to teach more of it and make myself a better learner, I'm just not far enough along to speak too much more on it in detail. But I will tell you this much: I'm reading it because one of my leaders here had a personal goal to read a book a month. And I said, well, let's read this together. And it has been an amazing decision. It's brought he and I closer. And this is an example of how you create that environment that we talked about today.
But thanks a lot for the chat, Mike. I honestly didn't see time fly this quickly. I really thought we had like a lot more time, but it just went by the 1 hour. But it's been a very eventful 1 hour. I think I've learned quite a few things over this time, and you kind of explained it in a very digestible manner. You didn't go over my head at all. I'm hoping it didn't happen with the readers and viewers as well. So thank you again for everything that you've done.
Time flies when you're having fun, man. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks for watching that episode. I hope you enjoyed. For more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe.